Dr. Hampton, and this is my explainer video on Occam's razor, which is a really important concept in our class, and so I want to make sure everybody gets it. Long story short, Occam's razor is a way of cutting away bad assumptions, which we'll talk about in a second, bad arguments, and bad evidence, and what you have left is likely to be the correct explanation for whatever it is that you may be trying to explain. The name comes from William of Occam, a medieval philosopher and theologian, and Occam said something in Latin, which I will translate as, never try to do with more what can be done with fewer. The way that I've made this relate to argument specifically in the terms handout is by saying the explanation with the fewest unproven or unnecessary assumptions is probably correct. So we have to talk about what assumptions are. Well, anytime you make a claim of fact, value, or policy, anytime you say something is a certain way or should be a certain way, that's a claim, and I'll call it an argument sometimes too. All claims have assumptions. These are things that are not stated in the claim, but if the claim is true, they also have to be true. So an example would be, let's say you run into the vice president, Kamala Harris, and so you're making small talk and you're like, so, Madam Vice President, what did you do before you were vice president? And she says, well, I was, um, I was in the Senate for several years and I was Attorney General of California. Aha, we have a claim. And so she doesn't say, I went to law school, I passed the bar exam, I was a hotshot lawyer. But, implied in this claim is that because, you have to be a lawyer to be attorney general, therefore, these have to be true. And you don't get to be an attorney general if you're kind of okay at law. So you can assume that she was very, very good in her profession. And we know this claim is true, that Harris was Attorney General of California, but what about more speculative claims? Because those are the ones that are tougher, and those are the ones that we focus on in this class, partly because they're so prevalent in today's society, but also partly because they're more fun. So I'm sure there's somebody on YouTube or Reddit right now saying that the Illuminati have put Harris in the White House to further their globalist agenda, or whatever they're saying. But if you think about it using Occam's razor, do you really need the Illuminati? If somebody's resume, includes City Attorney of San Francisco, State Attorney General of California, United States Senate. I mean, this is clearly a person who is on their way to great things. And you probably don't need a shadowy organization for which no evidence actually exists. So Occam's razor would cut that away as an unnecessary assumption. Let's look at another conspiracy theory. This one's been around for 20 years almost. The conspiracy theories surrounding the September 11th terrorist attacks in the United States, September 11th, 2001. And so the official story is that terrorists from Al-Qaeda hijacked airplanes and flew them into the Pentagon and the World Trade Center and were trying to fly one into the White House. But the passengers on that plane figured out what was going on and tried to take it back from the terrorists, and eventually that plane crashed. So what the conspiracy theorists usually say about the World Trade Center towers is, no, a plane didn't take them out. What happened was elements in the Bush government wired them up with TNT or thermite, and it was a controlled demolition. So there's the claim. The assumptions are, well, somebody had to put those materials there without anyone else noticing, and also controlled demolitions start at the bottom of the building. They don't start at the top, but the problem is the World Trade Center towers collapsed from the top down. This is the interior of a building that's wired for demolition, and from this one photo you can see this is a time-consuming and labor-intensive process. In fact, this demolition company says that for larger, more complex, or multiple structures, it can take up to 6 months of preparation just to get them ready to demolish. I would say 6 months is probably optimistic for 210-story buildings like the World Trade Center towers. So we've got two explanations. We've got the hijacked planes explanation for bringing down the World Trade Center and the controlled demolition conspiracy explanation. What are the assumptions? Well, with the official story, the assumptions are fairly limited. People can hijack planes, planes can be flown into buildings, and flying a commercial jet into a building can weaken it enough that it will collapse. Over here, we've got the unquestionable people can demolish buildings. Then we get into workers spent months prepping the World Trade Center, but nobody noticed them, and none of them ever talked, and no one noticed all those explosives, and also someone invented a new way to implode a building. Hmm. Well, it looks like using Occam's razor, the official story stands up a little bit better, especially since after 9/11, the third, assumption here was tested quite thoroughly. And it was found, yes, flying a jet into a skyscraper, that'll do it. So you take out your razor, and if you have these things that are either unproven or unnecessary, go with the ones, that work. And so that kind of cuts out the controlled demolition conspiracy narrative. Let's look at another conspiracy theory. Who built the Egyptian pyramids? Was it Egyptians or was it extraterrestrials, aliens from another world? Well, there's this wonderful website called TV Tropes that's a pop culture website mostly, but it also deals with critical thinking. So it's like the perfect website for me. And on their Occam's Razor page, they deal with this ancient astronauts theory that the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids, but aliens came here from another world and they built them instead. This stuff was all the rage when I was a kid, and lots and lots of ancient monuments were, claimed to have been constructed by aliens. But again, let's look at the assumptions. Let's just look at what's being argued by, each explanation. In the ET hypothesis, we go from the relatively unquestionable aliens exist, because if you think about how big the universe is and how old the universe is, yeah, there's got to be life out there somewhere, and it's probably intelligent life, and it may even be more advanced than us. It gets a little questionable with these two because interstellar travel, would necessitate, unless these aliens have a lifespan of, tens of thousands of years, you would need near light or light speed travel. Well, we don't know how to do that yet. I guess if they're super intelligent aliens, maybe they figured it out. Um, and maybe they know other laws of physics than we do. But then they can find Earth. Well, if you did see the Powers of 10 video and have some sense of how big the universe is, that may be the most questionable assumption here, along with they would leave no evidence of ever coming here or, ever building the pyramids. On the other side, we've got humans exist, they can build pyramids, they would waste time building pyramids. And actually, this one has been fairly extensively researched. We have a pretty good idea how the pyramids were built. We know where the workers lived. We know what the workers ate. We know how much the workers got paid, and no, they were not slaves, as you see in some movies. So again, do we need ETs if we've got a good explanation, over here? You can imagine what William of Ockham would say to the ET hypothesis. Not because it's ETs, because again, I mean, a lot of these medieval philosophers were extremely open-minded about, that kind of stuff. It's just that, yeah, I don't think so. So, and it's weird. It's almost as if conspiracy theorists know Occam on some level, because what you see happen with conspiracy theories almost always is they get bigger and bigger and more complex as they try to explain their own questionable assumptions. And so, getting back to thermite with the collapse of the World Trade Center towers, thermite was tested after 9/11, just to see, well, could you bring down a building like that with thermite? And it was found that thermite was not good at all at cutting steel beams. So the answer from the conspiracy theorists was, hey, the government has super thermite. Well, all that is just another unproven and unnecessary, assumption. as to the planes on 9/11 that people saw swooping down over Washington, D.C. and New York City, those were holograms, according to a lot of 9/11 conspiracy theorists. Well, but what about the one that crashed in Pennsylvania where the passengers were trying to take it back from the terrorists? Oh, that one? The conspiracy theorists say that one was shot down by the government to make you believe the holograms were real. But wait, why shoot down a plane if you have good holograms? So again, when you start to really look at the assumptions and look at the evidence, it doesn't hold together. And speaking of big conspiracy theories, here's David Icke. He's the shape-shifting reptilian alien guy. David Icke's model of, the elite network. This is everybody who's holding us back, man. The Illuminati, the Committee of 300, um, the mafia, but also education. I guess that's me, brainwashing you not to believe in this. The military, business. That's kind of a lot of people. Banking, uh, the media, of course. You kind of wonder finally, who's this human race at the bottom? You're kind of hearing syndrome in The Incredibles. If everyone's part of the conspiracy, then no one is. So anyhow, I hope this video on Occam's razor has helped explain it. If not, please ask me questions. Please ask for clarifications because I'm happy to provide them. Thanks for watching. There's those shape-shifting reptilian aliens again. I know them quite well from going to the University of Florida. And thank you again. See you on the discussion boards.